Thanks for staying with us. So the president just recently arrived from the G20 meeting they had in India, and then also the United Arab Emirates lifted their ban imposed on Nigerians concerning traveling. The decision was reached by the president after President Bola Tinubu met with the UAE president in Abu Dhabi on Monday. We'll have with us right now the spokesperson who is going to be sharing with us exactly the highlights of the G20 Summit and also the meeting they had in Abu Dhabi. Good morning, Ajuri. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Mariah. Good morning, ladies, and of course, viewers.
All right, so welcome back from your trip. Tell us, let's start with the trip to India, the G20 Summit, the fact that you took like 30-something industrialists from Nigeria with you. What exactly was the objective of that event, and what are the major highlights?
Thank you very much. So, you know, the G20 was really a kind of a book with two major chapters in it. The first chapter was really focused on, you know, the events leading up to the G20, which were significant for the country. Essentially, His Excellency President Bola Tinubu went out of his way to very aggressively court new foreign direct investments into the country. He was meeting with industrialists, chief executives of multi-billion-dollar companies across multiple sectors, and essentially was not just content with receiving pledges, investment pledges from investors, but sitting down with each of them one-on-one, detailing what the potential encumbrances may be in Nigeria for them. Are there any regulatory concerns that they have? Are there any fiscal concerns they have? Whatever their concerns may have been, they sat down with Mr. President, line by line, went through their concerns, and Mr. President, again, these are not just pledges. These are agreements that are being dealt with on a one-by-one, case-by-case basis to ensure that those investments hit the ground, that those jobs are created for Nigerians, and that local businesses will benefit from the establishment of these large-scale industries and factories across the country, across multiple sectors of the economy. The second leg of the trip, the second element of the trip, or the second chapter of the book, so to speak, in India, was the actual event itself, which was the G20 Summit, in which His Excellency President Bola Tinubu had received a special invitation from the host nation, India, from Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And essentially what that enabled Mr. President to do was to deepen his bilateral engagements with his colleague heads of state, but with a particular focus on his economic development, diplomatic initiatives. He was, in every meeting, focused in on ensuring that we are encouraging, you know, our foreign heads of state to rally their business people to come into Nigeria, to put those investments on the ground that will create mutually beneficial win-win partnerships for the Nigerian economy.
Right. Let me get a few more questions in for you. Go ahead.
Yes, so looking at the clips of you know, the meeting, it seems like a very robust meeting, and I'm sure all the intelligent heads would have rubbed minds together, and the fact that the investment is going to be coming into our country is a good one, is a step in the right direction, and I say congratulations. But I would like to know if you know, this partnership we're getting into, if there are details on how the Nigerian workers, how many of the Nigerian workers will be employed when these companies start working, and how the Nigerian workers will be protected, because some of the companies mentioned already have their businesses here, and we know that sometimes the multinationals who come here to do business do not treat our people well. Did you present our, you know, people as part of these negotiations?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. So yes, there are a few issues to unpack there. Let's first of all look at the actual investments that were secured in India and why they're relevant. You would recall that we have had in this country a company known as Indorama that deals in petrochemicals, fertilizer production, and the like, cited, it just so happens to be cited in my local government of LMA, local government of River State. Multi-billion-dollar facility housing thousands of Nigerian workers, employing them and the like, and obviously paying major taxes, both state and federal. Now, what had happened was, in their unique case, they had some regulatory issues that needed to be worked out in the amongst the oil and gas regulators. And in effect, it got to a stage where it required presidential intervention. So when it got to Mr. President's table, he called the GCEO of NNPCL, Malamele Kyari, to his office and said, look, this is the encumbrance to a major investment coming into the country and a major expansion of both job creation as well as new tax revenues. I want this dealt with, and I want it dealt with within the next 21 days. That was the timeline that he gave the GCEO of NNPCL. Within 2 weeks, all of the bottlenecks had been removed. As a result of that, the Indorama has now pledged an expansion of nearly $8 billion just because of that single personal presidential intervention of President Bola Tinubu with respect to the Indorama investment. So that's one of the major investments that we secured in India. Secondly, a major steel producer, a multi-billion-dollar steel production conglomerate known as Jindal Steel and Power Company Limited, has pledged $3 billion in phase one. This is something that can scale up. But in phase one, pledging $3 billion to establish a new steel production and iron ore processing factory in Nigeria, right? So obviously you're going to have thousands of jobs now created both directly and indirectly due to the establishment of that facility as well. Yeah. We also have a $1.6 billion investment coming in from a company known as Skipper Seal Power Company Limited, essentially a major multi-billion-dollar power company that deals in electric power generation, but through the provision of solar energy. So what they do is they provide, I said electric, I meant solar power. What they do is they're providing 20 new 100 megawatt solar-powered power generation stations across the states of northern Nigeria that will come to about 2,000 megawatts in total. That has obviously major multiplying impact on the Nigerian economy through not just the provision of direct jobs, but obviously through the provision of new energy that will energize the economy of not just the north, but of the entire federation. So you have several investments like that will have the direct effect of the direct jobs created in those facilities, as well as the indirect jobs created by the facilitation and patronage of MSMEs and local vendors in these communities across the country.
Ajuri, you've used two words interchangeably, secured and pledge. Which is it? Because Nigerians are confused. Are these deals being secured, or they are just mere pledges for now?
Yes. So now, where we are now in the process is that the president has secured the top-level pledges from the chief executive officers of these companies. The next step now is for them to come into the country and now put all the finer details on paper and to sign and execute. Okay. But what the president told them is that when as we've now resolved the issues, you've told me your issues, I have resolved them, I have linked you with Minister of Trade, I have linked you with Minister of Defense, I have linked you with the relevant officials. What is now going to happen is we're going to meet again in Nigeria, we get the finer details on paper, and we're going to have immediate execution. So we're looking at a takeoff of these various projects of within the next 30 to 45 days. That was the agreement struck by Mr. President with these investors.
Okay. So, a lot of the investments that you talked about caught my attention. You already mentioned one, the power generation plants across northern, some states in northern Nigeria. But the second one that is so important to me is the $1 billion $1 billion agreement to bring the Defense Industry Corporation of Nigeria, DICON, to about 40% self-sufficiency in local manufacturing and production by 2027. Of course, as we know, security is a major topic in Nigeria. And I'm wondering, during this conversation, what sort of, could you just tell Nigerians, like, what sort of conversations did we have with the Minister of Defense and this company? And what should Nigerians see going forward because of this investment in our security?
A fantastic question. So yes, there was a major defense component to the agreement struck. That was further followed up, I need to mention this, by when His Excellency Mr. President interfaced with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the G20. It was also raised, this issue of enhanced defense partnership between the two countries. What they've been able to successfully achieve in India is a major transition from the system we've been running in Nigeria, which is largely import dependent, largely import based, where you're paying, billions of dollars to the US, to Israel, to Russia, to other European countries, China and the like, to really have them, bring in their locally produced locally manufactured weapon systems into Nigeria, but they're producing in their countries. The jobs are being sustained and created in their countries. Taxes are being paid in their countries and all of that. They just take our capital and go. What India had done is over the last 10 years, they have transitioned from that same kind of a system to one that is totally self-reliant on the basis of, local research and development and local innovation. They're now being able to manufacture their own arms, both at a small scale with light weapons and at the advanced scale of fighter jets, aircrafts, ship landing tanks, I mean, you name it. So what we've said is that, look, there are lessons that we can learn from India. And Mr. President communicated that very clearly to the Indian Prime Minister. And they were able to strike quite a favorable, kind of collegial relationship in which the Indian Prime Minister said, look, we are going to work with you. We see the reforms that you have put in place very quickly in Nigeria, Mr. President, and we see you're serious and we're going to work with you. Okay. So as part of all of that, the defense agreement we have is essentially that it's no longer going to be enough for us to take technology off of the hands of these other countries. We want the technology to be locally manufactured, locally produced. We want to, localize our research and development to such an extent that we will have the start to finish production and processing of all of the various requirements of our armed forces in country. Right. So in this agreement, as you rightly mentioned, the president is focused in on two major institutions. One is NASENI, the National Agency for Space and Engineering Infrastructure. The other one is the DICON, that is the Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria. In the 1970s, we were producing a lot of our requirements. It's just that from the 1980s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, we had become very lazy in our approach, and then we resorted to mass import. So the focus now is, the president is insisting on creating a local ecosystem in which we are producing our own fighter jets over a period of time. We're producing our own. We're already producing our own armored personnel carriers and other things. But what we are saying is that with India, they must localize all of the various stages of production in Nigeria for the benefit of creating Nigerian jobs, paying taxes to Nigerian authorities, subnational and national, and making sure that we get all of that value in country. And then again, there's also a national security component. When you are able to locally innovate, it's more difficult for other countries to know what your capacity is and what your capacity is not with respect to your capabilities on the battlefield. This is where we want Nigeria to be within the next 10 years or so.
All right. Go ahead, Toby.
Okay, so in November of 2022, we found out that Emirates and Etihad Airlines suspended their operations in Nigeria over the inability to repatriate its $85 million revenue trapped in the country. And we see that one of the gains of the president's trip to the United Arab Emirates is that these airlines would resume operations immediately. And the statement went on to say that Nigeria wasn't going to be involved in any immediate payments to these airlines. Now, how was that possible? Knowing fully well that, yes, we agree that the president is a master negotiator, but we would like to know the processes involved, because one would naturally think that pay the debt first or pay the revenue first before operations can go on seamlessly.
Yes, thank you very much. So, you know, of course, His Excellency, Mr. President, is a man who values his time appropriately. He's very efficient with the management of his time. He knew that he had an opportunity of a technical stopover. Why not take maximum advantage of that and get some official business done on behalf of the Nigerian people? And that's what we saw in the United Arab Emirates. A standoff that has lasted several months. In just 24 hours of His Excellency Mr. President's presence. But we also don't want to preempt a process that is currently playing out. You currently have cabinet officials on both the sides representing both countries, working out the finer details, putting pens to paper, and we don't want to get too far ahead of that. So we'll allow that process to finish before we get very, very specific with respect to the details of what those interventions and investments will be from the UAE into the Nigerian economy across sectors. But we can say that the visa ban has been dealt with. Nigerians can look forward to business ties being restored across the two countries. And of course, this is going to have a major impact on Nigerian economic actors, both from small-scale business to medium-scale and large-scale industry. But what we've said is that these things are give and take, right? You don't just go and collect favors. You also have to give an assurance that our visa processing system must be modified in such a way that we have better diligence done on applicants who are seeking to go to the UAE. We want the best of our citizens traveling abroad, people who will represent us well, going to study, going to do business, going to be proper brand ambassadors for Nigeria and other countries. Right. So we've assured the UAE that we are going to ensure that the worst elements, the few bad eggs that spoil all of our collective name, that we do a better job of filtering them out before they have a chance to enter into some of these other countries.
Right. Okay, so I feel like my first question was not answered, but I want to believe, because what I wanted to hear was how the Nigerian worker will be protected in signing of this, documents for these companies to come and work here. I didn't get that clarification. However, I just want to believe that when you people are fine-tuning the partnerships, you would decide what the Nigerian worker will be paid, the benefits they're supposed to have in line with what the international workers will be paid as well. Just, make it seem, make it robust for the Nigerian worker, not to be exploited. But I also wanted to ask, I know that we like foreign direct investments. We're looking for USD, Forex up and down, and, this is good. But where does this place the local manufacturers, especially in line with these businesses that we have? What sort of support will they have? Do you think they can compete favorably with these big international companies coming in?
So this is really the beauty of Mr. President's design, is that he has ensured that these investments are complementary to the Nigerian worker, to the process of localization in terms of local content, and to the process of supporting Nigerian MSMEs, medium-scale industry, and large-scale industry. You would recall that His Excellency Mr. President at the CEO roundtable in New Delhi, who did he bring to the table? The president of the Nigerian Chamber of Commerce, the president of NASIMA. He ensured that we had about 20 captains of industry, including titans like Sir Tony Elumelu and many, many others at the table, to ensure that our companies are represented in any kind of process of negotiation or of courting of foreign direct investment, to ensure complementarity, to ensure that there's a handshake. We are not into the days of the days of parasitic economic relationships are over. What we are focused on is ensuring that our new investors coming in are coming in to support the Nigerian ecosystem of MSMEs and large-scale industries, not to harm them, not to take away from them. So let me give you a practical example. When Jindal Steel comes into the country now to establish a $3 billion steel processing and production factory in the country, what that is going to mean for the MSME that is into construction, or the medium-scale enterprise that is into, various industrial use cases that require steel as a key input. You're now going to have locally produced, locally processed steel products, instead of having to pay those massive surcharges that you'll have to pay due to the importation, the use of foreign exchange to import into the country. You're now going to have that savings of having a locally, refined and processed and produced steel. That is a base of industrialization on which Nigerian MSMEs and Nigerian medium and large-scale industries can now build their businesses at a much cheaper rate because it's locally produced. So that's just one example out of many as to how those investments will assist Nigerian businesses.
We have to let you go now, Ajuri. But I can't let you go without asking how our refinery is going. I thought by end of August, the Dangote would have started, based on what you told us.
No, yes. So the Dangote refinery announcement of, I believe it was May when they launched, they said products would begin coming out by September. Now, there are multiple products that come out of the Dangote refinery. You have aviation fuel, you have PMS, and you have diesel, and you have many other products that are coming out. So I believe the best way to get a concrete timeline on PMS as a product, instead of some of these other products that I believe have already started coming out, is to actually find out directly from the Dangote refinery. But what I can speak to is the government refinery under NNPCL, which is launching in December of this year. That's phase 1, and that's PMS. All
right, Ajuri. Thank you very much. We are watching you. Based on your promise. But thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
All right, let's go on a break. When we come back, move on to other segments. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.